G'day team, Adam Kogan from SSW TV here, and let's do the SSW Tech News for August 2021. And we're not meeting in person, as you know. We've been pretty proud in Australia that we have had no cases for many months, but that all changed just a month or so ago with Delta. And we're not so proud anymore. We are under a serious lockdown. Rule that you can't leave more than 5 k's from your home, you know, you're allowed to go and do exercise, but you must go with one other person only. So there's no groups of people, just individuals or a friend, and they're pretty hardcore about it. They're fining people $3,000, $5,000. In fact, some people down in Melbourne tried to have a little get together for an engagement party. I think there was about 70 of them. They all got a $5,000 fine. So that was like over $250,000 worth of fines just for that little party. And this is a picture here of you know, Bondi Beach, and it is pretty much naked. No one's there. I live a few beaches down from there, and when you go for a walk, I go for a walk at 6:45 in the mornings. Like, it was quite amazing. At 7 o'clock, you usually only hear the lifeguards use their big loud speakers if someone's swimming outside the flags or they've spotted a shark or something. Well, they were yelling out to swimmers that were swimming up and down the beach, saying, "Get out of your groups. You must be in groups of 2 only." So they're even policing the swimmers now. But yeah, it's a pretty hard lockdown. What is fascinating for me watching, I have my daughter who is doing the HSC. So you do 12 years of study, the final year of study, big exams. You know how we used to have the odd exam that was open book. Now they're having the, I guess, now you're doing it at home. It's kind of, you know, open internet, I guess, you know. Whatever. Of course the students wouldn't cheat, but you know what it's like. So my daughter, Ruby, got onto a Facebook group to just have a bit of a look and find out what are all the kids going to do. And she said, you know, a lot of the kids were explaining how this is really hard, like the lockdown, how to, you know, been locked down for 4 weeks, how do we do our biggest exam ever, and we've had no teacher time. And she said, then all the country girls, you know, and the country kids got on and said, what are you city kids talking about? Try 12 years of this, you know, it's really difficult. So it was fascinating listening to all the stories, and it's going to be interesting how things pan out. But anyway, on to some real tech news. TikTok overtook Facebook as the #1 most downloaded app in the world. So that's pretty amazing. I was in China a few years ago and TikTok was everywhere, and now it's gone all the way to the West and it's everywhere. So, you know, the top ones now are TikTok, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Messenger, and Snapchat #6. So that's where we are. TikTok is super popular with the youngsters. My girls really like it, although there's nothing useful on it. It's all garbage. It's just like these little short 15-second videos of rot. It's unbelievable. I think it gives you brain damage. Now, moving on to something useful, here is GitHub. And they have announced a new feature. This is how they announced the feature. This is pretty cool, so I'll just play it for you. And so we can see that you have a GitHub repo. You press dot and it'll open in the browser, and you're looking at it in VS Code, but a copy in the browser. So pretty nice. Now, obviously, I thought this was fascinating because Scott Hanselman then talked about the same feature, but in a better way, I think. So check this out.
Pops up
So, well, there is, that proved me wrong with the TikTok. There is something useful, but it is a fascinating way of presenting that feature. Really cool. So let's move on to Visual Studio 2019. Lots and lots of stuff in there. What is the coolest stuff in Visual Studio 2019? Well, in my opinion, this hot reload. So you know how when you're coding and you drop out to your breakpoint, you could, well, you have to kind of stop the project, make a code change, recompile, rerun the thing. Now you can make a code change while the app is running. So while everything's running, and to get it to take it, you can, I'll just try to zoom in here. You press this little guy here. It's a little flame icon. So that's how you basically continue from there. So that's pretty awesome that you can just apply your code changes and have it run. So that's fantastic. All right, next piece of news is Microsoft announced that they have a partnership with this Euclidean. They're an Aussie-based company. They're a geospatial data platform. And you know how we have kind of PaaS, platform as a service, and we have infrastructure as a service, IaaS, and software as a service. Now we have visualization as a service. And this is pretty phenomenal stuff. And the best way of understanding this is seeing an example. Let's jump into an example here. And here we have a so here we have Denver. And Denver, you might have a scenario where you are trying to sell that you're going to put a building somewhere, or maybe let's just assume a fun park. But you want to represent where that might be. So you put it, you show where you're going to put in the city. Maybe it's out there in the suburbs. Maybe it's on a hill, something like that. So you might choose to do something like that. Now, the next thing I'd like to show you is this. This is, you might recognize this. This is the rail lines. And here we have physical assets. So this is a virtualization of trains, and they're moving along. And you will see that you can see where the trains are. You might even recognize this. This is an Australian city that has a river going through it. And there it is. Have you recognized it yet? But this is Queensland Rail. So that's Brisbane. And they have used this. So I'll just pause it there. And this is a really good example of when you've got physical assets and then you're injecting them with data and they're moving along and you're seeing where they're going. So that's pretty fascinating. So there is another one here, and it's not just for those type of assets. So here is a physical ship, and this is a real ship. And you can explore, you can talk about you can go through it all. It looks pretty nice, doesn't it? And so this is a visualization of that. Billions of data points in this. So I think that gives you a really nice idea of what you can do. Look, right down to a millimeter resolution. So, and let's have a look at one more here. And you can even look at stuff underground. So there is a mine that's underground. I think that's pretty amazing. You can see all this stuff. So that gives you lots of ideas. So you can go, you can view, the planets, you can view Earth, you can go down to cities, you can go down to buildings, down to cars, down to, they say you can go down to just a couple of millimeters. So it's pretty impressive. And this also doesn't need a GPU. This type of stuff usually needs a GPU, but this runs only through your CPU. So this runs fine on mobile devices. So this is pretty amazing technology. And so we've got lots of different ideas. Now, where does this come from? Let's watch this digital twin to get a bit of an idea what this is all about. With really expensive industries such as SpaceX and NASA, and then it goes down to construction, medical, the car industry, and lots of things. So you take a digital asset, or you take a physical asset, and you make a digital asset. Now, obviously, this is huge in the Microsoft space with IoT, and it looks like it's really going to be huge with this virtualization as a service. Now, this was done, this concept was invented by Michael Groves, and I might just quickly show you something. This guy is from Florida, and he sent me an image coming up from his book. So he has this book that's coming up, and I might just full screen that so you can see that. And this book that he's releasing, so the inventor of the concept of digital twins, Michael Groves, this book is called The Intelligent Digital Twins and the Development and Management of Complex Systems. And he basically talks about how you can do a whole lot of complex systems and how it's evolving. Now, he defines these complex systems, the evolution of it, on this image on one of his chapters, and I'll just see if I can make that a little bigger for you. But that's kind of where we've been, throughout history, this traditional, what he calls the atom-based information. And, I guess cavemen were even doing maps, and we go to architects and we get that style of map. Then he has this transitional one, and this is the first kind of big evolution. And this is, movement, information, a virtual space, all 3D type of stuff. And then we move on to this conceptual and ad hoc system, which is the twin of the physical access, the twin of the physical object. And this is where we are today in, we're creating digital twins of lots of physical assets. We create a digital twin of a car, and we try to explore that and how that's going to work. We have a data center, and we have lots of IoT sensors in it, and we can see where the hotspots are on our digital twin, and we can see what's going on with all that data coming. Then we have this replication part, and this is like lots of information virtual platforms that can collect the digital twins, and you're mirroring a physical reality. And that is, I kind of think of that as kind of the, you know, if you're driving a car and it's collecting a whole lot of data, they can replay what you've done. And then you've got this front-running simulation. And this is, you know, the digital twin platforms where they're constantly predicting the future. I kind of think of it a little bit like a Tesla autopilot. You know, it's taking in a whole lot of real-life data as it's going along and making decisions where to go, etc. So it's all pretty fascinating stuff, I think. It's going to be huge. All right. So let's move on. And another big story during the month was Microsoft talked about how in Singapore that there's a whole lot of HoloLens 2 development with surgeons. And these surgeons there have a great story, and I think it's worth seeing this video. And I won't play it all, but I want you to take a look at it. But these doctors talk about how they've been doing all this brain surgery and seeing brain tumours, and it really gives them a total 3D view of what's going on before they have to operate. And obviously they like it because it's HoloLens and they don't have to physically touch anything when they're operating and stuff like that. So they can see a lot more, and they were just saying it's been incredible for them. So there's an example in healthcare but it's a little different than the example before. Now, I want to talk about this OpenAI. Last month in the news, we talked about Copilot in GitHub. And there's been some more advances that we heard about. And this is the OpenAI. That's like a non-profit organization funded by Microsoft and some others. And they're offering an API for GitHub, and they're using the same type of model. So it is pretty good. I'll show you a couple of examples of that at the same, likewise. So here is one, and I might just pause it here, but you can pass in example questions for it to learn. So you could say, what is human life expectancy in the United States? And say, look, the answer we want you to give us is something like human life expectancy in the United States is 78 years. And then you can ask it a question using that pattern. You could say, what is the meaning of life? And it will scour the internet and give you back your answer and see what it does. And you can see here, it passes that in, and it uses all these APIs, and it gives you the answer. The meaning of life is 42. So essentially, it's only as intelligent as the APIs or the internet, and that's what it's telling you, obviously from Monty Python, I guess. Now, there is a great example here, and I really love this. I think this is worth running. So I might just show you this one. Let's see if you can hear this one. So what we have here is we have kind of like an Excel add-in where you can come in here and you can just type a natural language query, okay? And in this natural language query, he's going to say publicly traded technology companies, all right? And then he's going to click suggest headers, and it will give you some, look, these are the types of things. Company, ticker, market cap. Then he's going to go ahead and he changes market cap to, he doesn't want that, he wants something else. He wants year founded. So it's able to call all these APIs, and he says, oh, fill in this data and press complete table, which will call the APIs, and it'll grab that information. Now he goes on and on, there's a lot more examples, but that is using a natural language query. Anyone, you can imagine accountants would find this natural to use. So I think this is going to be enormous. It's going to be fantastic. Now there's some other examples that they have here as well, and there's lots of it. But here is an example, and I will just see if they have a nice demo here. So here is an example where they can, let me just see. there's another example I wanted to see as well. So I'll just, maybe it's under, one second, was it? So there was a really nice example. Well, this one will do. This one is, we'll see this guy. There's a lot of it. But here is an example where somebody goes into Wikipedia and you look at bread. Bread has no mention on the entire Wikipedia about fluffy. There's not, that word doesn't exist. But you can ask a question like, why is bread fluffy? And it will then use the APIs and the internet and work out what fluffy might mean, and then go to the article and work out what in the article is probably the answer to why is bread fluffy. So I like this example because we have, a whole lot of rules. We've got thousands of rules, and you can only find a rule if you know the right words. So for example, if you wanted to know how to insert a grid into CRM, okay? Now, you will find no results for that on SSW rules because we don't use the term CRM for that. We use the Microsoft term, which is Dynamics 365. And we don't use grid, we'd use entity. And so it would be able to translate what you're meaning and still find the relevant rules. So I find that amazing. There's lots of cool stuff on this. I think you'll be blown away if you have a look at it. Here is another example. And there's lots and lots of different types, but you could come in here and give it some crazy text. There are many fruits that were found on the recently discovered planet Gucrux. There are neoskeletals that grow there. There are purple and taste like candy. There are locals, which are greyish blue. You can see this is all weird lingo. It's a language you wouldn't even understand. Now, what you can do is pass in some data and it will fill this in, work out what the other products are and what colour they are, etc. So that would be pretty awesome. You can, let me just, text generation, what's this one? Here we have, so you've given it some words. We are releasing an API for accessing the new AI models that were developed by OpenAI. Unlike most AI systems which are designed for one use case, the API today provides a general purpose text in, text out interface, allowing users to try it on virtually any English language task. You can now request access in order to integrate the API into your product, develop an entirely new application, or help us explore the strengths and limits of this technology. Great explanation of what it does. But what if you want more text? What if you want it to be longer? Okay? You can say, well, I want a bit more. And it will just make more words up that are intelligent, that are like that. My daughter would need this. I hope she doesn't use this for her HSC. If she needs an extra couple of pages, she could put in what she's done so far, use this, and she's got an extra page to type out. So pretty cool stuff. Now, moving along, this is a little bit of hardware news. I found this fascinating. But basically, the placement of pins is very important on chips. And Samsung said that they were using AI, they're using essentially artificial intelligence to work out where should we be putting all the chips. And they talk here how they got I think it was a 15% improvement on that by using that model. It was there we go. It was a 15% improvement. And then Google and NVIDIA also announced that they will be using something similar to get a performance improvement as well. So there we go. There is using these, using all the data that we have to let the machines make choices for us. And along the same lines, I might just having a funny conversation with our guys in China, but China is using these influencers, but the influencers are virtual. They don't gain weight, they never age, they keep their computer-generated noses out of any controversy. They do lots of tweets on Weibo and different platforms, TikTok. but TikTok is not called TikTok in China. But here is one influencing Tesla over there, but she's not real. It's kind of crazy, but there's a funny article on this, so hilarious. Anyway, on to, let's talk about cryptocurrency. There was a huge event that happened. $600 million was stolen in crypto coins. There's a fair article, many articles about this, but the hacker, or hackers, stole it mostly from Ethereum, and they got some other money from some of the other ones. But $600 million is a good amount of money, hey? And then we got some new news on the same event, and he returned $260 million, okay? Was he feeling guilty? No, apparently not. He was just a nice guy. And he was saying how he got rid of all the, he wasn't very happy with everybody accusing him and detesting him and stuff. And he said he got rid of all the little ones, I believe. So, yeah, he was very worried about his image. And yeah, he said, look, I gave back all the little ones. In fact, he said he was still trying to do more. The perpetrator explained that he was taking his time returning the money because he needed to rest. And he also needed to negotiate with Poly Network, and he wanted to show, his dignity while concealing his identity, or their identity. So, yes, very worried about his image and giving back the money to the little guys. Anyway, so I might finish it off with something I just found out that I thought was hilarious. During our big exams for school, we had to do things like study Macbeth and other Shakespeare things, and it was not much fun. English was not much fun. My daughter is studying The Castle. Do you remember this? You wouldn't think this was a literary piece, would you? But it is. It's a literary piece. And I don't know if you, like everybody, I know there's some Americans here, but this is a fun Aussie movie about a really homely family that loses their house. And they're losing their house because the airport is being expanded. And there's such a beautiful family, full of values, and also very innocent. And here is the movie, The Castle, and that's what she's been studying. It's a very simple movie, and a lot of famous expressions came from it where something good happens, that'll go straight to the pool room. Or, gosh, so many other cool sayings.
How's the serenity?
Oh, how's the serenity when it's ever peaceful? How's the serenity? Yeah, a lot of awesome things came out of that one. Whenever anyone says something that's kind of not realistic, we say, tell him he's dreaming, okay? So it was an awesome movie. Yeah, he's an ideas man. So if I ever come up with a good idea, I like to say I'm an ideas man. And I was asking my daughter, what would you write about this? Like, what do you say? And she read me a paragraph. She sent it to me, and it says this. This working class fulfillment is delineated in Darrell's defining use of language, saying, a man's home is his castle. The statement utilises dramatic irony, as the Kerrigan's ramshackle house is far from a castle. Satirical visual language is used in the establishing shot, which presents the Kerrigan Street name, Highview. I never noticed that. Kerrigan Street name, Highview, before panning to reveal that they are ironically at a ground level next to the airport. So that's what that simple movie sounds like when you do an English class. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the news. Tell us what was cool and what was not. Put some comments down, and I will see you next month for the news again. hear her. All right, so welcome to SSW TV, and we have a special presenter on tonight, Lana Vyshnivetska, and she is talking about SecDevOps, Azure Functions, multi-cloud strategies. She's covering everything. So let me hand you over to Lana.
Thank you, Adam. Good evening. Today I will be discussing secure DevOps for Azure Functions and API management and in hybrid cloud architecture. Where do you start? Cloud services offer more freedom and flexibility, but they create huge blind spot for IT security. Similar, the popularity of serverless applications come with their own challenges. Coupled with heavy usage of APIs and services architecture does not make security simpler. Tonight, in this talk, agenda will be introduction, where I talk and share details about myself. Then we move to cloud application security, technical controls, and administrative controls. And I will do some demos as well. Hey, Adam, shall I continue? So when it comes to technical controls, how to mitigate modern security threats using API management? What are subscriptions? How to protect your subscriptions keys and do not expose them to the wider audience? And how Azure Key Vault as a tool will help you to keep your secrets safe. Secure your backend using Auth2 protocol and JSON Web Tokens. Extract claims in Azure API management policy. Pipeline as a code. Why should everything be source controlled and no manual changes should be made in Azure portal? Certificates in API management, how they help you. In hybrid cloud architecture, connect on-premises API to cloud services by creating a facade which lets you safely integrate on-premises and cloud environments. What application firewall is, and how important monitoring in Azure, and why we need to log everything, all calls to APIM and down to Azure Monitor as a consolidated place. Administrative controls, what is segregation of duty model? What is ineffective incident response procedure? Also, we discuss application security testing as a part of your secure DevOps model. My name is Lana Vyshnivetska, and I am currently holding position of technical lead and challenger, a financial company in Sydney, Australia. I spent my professional life building software applications of enterprise level. I have 20+ years of experience in software development and IT, experienced in software development lifecycle, solution architecture, secure DevOps, cloud technologies, and people management. I know there is no simple answer for all challenges in IT with modern technologies, but I'm very keen to help business utilize the best from IT and coach software engineers and IT professionals. You can find me on LinkedIn by simply searching my name, or use the link provided, or drop me a message in Gmail. What are Azure Functions? Azure Functions is a serverless solution. System application logic implemented as ready-to-execute blocks of code. These blocks are called functions. Serverless computing means providing backend services compute resources on application's demand. This model lets the developer focus on the functionality rather than on infrastructure and maintenance. It helps to build features faster and reduce time to the market. It allows flexibility with hosting plans for your applications. As number of requests increase, as many resources and instances as necessary are allocated. As requests fall, resources and instances dropped automatically. There are 3 basic hosting plans available for Azure Functions: consumption plan, premium plan, and dedicated application service plan. All hosting plans are generally available on both Linux and Windows virtual machines. The hosting plan dictates the following behavior: how your functions applications is scaled, the resources available to each function app instance, and support for advanced functionality, such as Azure Virtual Network Connectivity. API management is a gateway between clients and backend services, allows organizations to publish APIs to external and internal parties, provides a certain interface to consolidate and manage thousands of APIs across multiple platforms. Definition by Microsoft: accepts API calls and route them to your backends, verifies API keys, JSON Web Tokens, certificates, and other credentials, enforce usage quotas and rate limits, transforms your API on the fly without code modifications, cache backend responses, and logs call metadata for analytic purpose. Building facade and decouple between internal backend and external services, or to allow integration with third-party partners, provides security and protection for your APIs. API management security baseline already defined by Microsoft and should be implemented in collaboration with your network engineers. As application developer, you should take care about following: protecting critical web applications. API management should be confined with virtual networks in internal mode. And an Azure application gateway should be configured. By using this gateway, developers can control access to critical web applications. Denying communications with known malicious IP addresses. By using application gateway, developer can prevent access to malicious IP addresses. Role-based controls should be used to restrict access to Azure API management. APIM has following capabilities. API management products. Products are how APIs are surfaced to developers. Products can have one or more APIs and are configured with a title, description, and terms of use. Products can be open or protected. Protected products must be subscribed to before they can be used, while open products can be used without a subscription. When subscribed, users get a subscription key, which is good for any API in this product. Groups are used to manage the visibility of product to developers. Can be administrators, developers, or guests. As you can see, Azure API Management Service providers has many security and performance features. For example, based on API access plan, it can limit the number of calls that are allowed per the plan, prevent denial of service attack by using throttling, secure backend services by gating access with the API keys, allow to use advanced security policies like JSON Web Tokens, certificates, and other credentials. Hybrid cloud overview. My personal experience is with Azure Express Route to create private connection between Azure infrastructure on your premises. As you can see, Express Route circuit here and Microsoft Edge routers and gateway subnets, web tiers, business tier, data tier on cloud side with a virtual network, and on the left, you can see on-premises network where you can configure your own gateway and access to your servers, for example, database server. You can separate internal and external connections as well. When your internal customers are coming to service endpoint inside your API subnets, you have virtual network where you can separate subnets and access to them. And for external users, you configure application gateway subnet as well, where you put your application gateway as your first line of defense. When it comes to serverless applications, does it mean you have no servers, no attacks? Actually, that's not the case. Threats for your applications are still there. They just look and act different way. Serverless applications can include hundreds of functions, meaning your attack surface has changed. To keep control and maintain security require higher maturity level. Secure DevOps as a cultural thing, shift in a way of thinking. These days, the overall shift of responsibilities with hybrid cloud architecture resembles cloud provider, who is responsible for physical security, host infrastructure, operating system, logical application server, Cloud customer, responsible for application logic, client endpoints, and data. And what is shared between them is network controls, identity, and access management. As you can see, still plenty of things we need to be responsible for. OWASP Top 10, they still apply for serverless and hybrid cloud architecture. To help you to streamline and bring your security on high maturity level, make a right grouping for function apps. Grouping means collection of functions that share code, configuration, or management. These allow you to grant least privilege. Leverage any of security features built by your cloud provider. For example, Azure Security Center, managed identities. Later, we talk about application firewalls, restriction of IP addresses, what tools can be integrated with your CI/CD pipeline, and how to shift mindset and ally practices with a secure DevOps model. Zero trust model, security development lifecycle, and know your stakeholders. In general, zero trust approach aims to wrap security around every user, every device, every connection, every time. Access management is the first step in enforcing your security policies for users. Zero trust assumes there is no traditional network edge. Network can be local, in the cloud, or hybrid with resources anywhere. However, networks, the enterprise resources, and data need to be segmented and continuously monitored for intrusions and anomalies, not typical behavior. When it comes to your application, least privilege access must be enforced for all private applications and accounts in the cloud or on premises. With devices, end-user device must be isolated from each other, protected from threats, and continuously monitored. When you integrate your security into DevOps, you start with plan, where you define your threat model policies. In a coding and implementation phase, you include your static analysis. Then you do code review, and when it comes to build, it is suggested to move your penetration testing earlier. In traditional model, we do penetration testing at the very end, sometimes even after go live date. But you can actually do this in between your stages, for example, from moving to UAT to staging, or before moving to production. You test and release, and then you deploy, where your log and audit come into the play. In operate mode, when your application is live and running, you should do your threat intelligence and continuously monitor and detect and respond if security breach occur. Who your stakeholders are. Business division. What level of knowledge in security they have. Start small, plan to scale. It works well in Agile, doesn't work well in waterfall project approach, where everything should be estimated and budgeted upfront. Take as many opportunities as you can to talk about security on business level. They might start to educate themselves and embrace your idea on company level. Talk from positive side, how cybersecurity will strengthen in the business and helps to succeed. Define what security controls required. Start early on project discovery phase. Do upfront security assessment. If you don't have resources to do so, invite professionals. Be enabler and build knowledge base for everyone who is interested. Explain on different levels from basic to advanced. When it comes to general security guidelines for application developers, very obvious you have to validate your input for your Azure functions. Apply least privilege principle. Designating group of individual roles responsible for specific functions. Monitor third-party dependencies. Take components only from official sources over secure links. Prefer signed packages to reduce the chance of including a modified malicious component. Secure your cloud storage. Add multi-factor authentication, data encryption, SaaS tokens. If you keep your client's documentation in blob storage, Azure Blob Storage in Azure Service to store files, then leverage shared access signature tokens. This type of access tokens grants restricted access right to Azure storage resources, where client application granted permissions to manipulate with the resources in storage. It also valid for a certain time only. Enforce authorization and authentication, no direct access call to Azure Functions, only via API management. Configure network security rules for inbound and outbound communications. Configure transparent data encryption, especially important in hybrid architecture when SQL servers are on-prem. Subscriptions in Azure are Azure Tenant, Azure Subscriptions, Azure Resource Groups. An Azure Subscriptions is a logical container used to provision resources in Azure. It holds the details of all your resources like virtual machines, databases, and more. Azure Tenant is a higher level of the Azure subscription hierarchy. This is represented as a single identity, for example, person or company. Tenant is linked to single Azure ID instance. One tenant can have multiple subscriptions. Azure subscription is at the level at which the customer is billed based on usage. It also provides a logical segmentation for simplifying administration and access. Should be designed having security consideration in mind, aligned with segregation of duty approach. Typically, a company can have a single tenant, and each of the departments using cloud services can have subscription for their respective Azure environments. Azure Resource Group help in creating logical and billing segregation for resources. Each resource group can have different administrators to track billing. The billing data for several resource groups are collated and sent as a single invoice and can be managed much more easily at the subscription level. What are types of Azure subscriptions? Sponsored or trial subscription. Access to certain resources provided for a limited period of time or provide a certain amount of credits. Pay-as-you-go Azure subscription is the most affordable form of paid subscriptions, most widely used method. Enterprise agreement Azure subscription. There are high volume licenses and some level of commitments. What we discussed today in particular is API management subscriptions and how they can protect Azure functions. Issuing subscription key is the most common way for API consumers to get access to API published through API management instance. Think about subscription as API key. Client must have a valid subscription key in HTTP request when they are making calls. Provide a name for subscription, set the scope for APIs, individual API or product, and restrict access to subscription key values in staging and production environments. So only authorized person can see the value. So here you can see a bit of ARM template where we're using subscription configuration. Let's jump in quickly to Visual Studio Code to have an example. You can separate APIM instance based on your environment for dev or UAT environment. How you can define subscriptions for different APIs calling your main API. Segregation of duty models. What this model is, concept of having more than one individual required to complete a task. It will help you to protect your subscription keys and more, and do not expose them to entire development team. Keep your audience small. This is an internal control which is intended to further reduce the risk of fraud and security risk, sometimes known as redundancy. General approach, purpose and principles. Privileges are divided among multiple professionals so that no single individual is proficient to control the process. By allowing more than one individual to perform any given task, an organization can minimize the opportunity for misconduct, unintentional error and security breaches, increases the opportunities to identify it. The key principles that can be applied to segregation of duties are sequential separation, when an activity is broken into steps performed by different persons, for example, deploying to UAT and production environments. Individual separation, when at least two persons must approve an activity before it's done, for example, release management process. And how separation of duties align with Agile, maximizing efficiency, reduce time to the market, and unnecessary costs. Separation if separation of duties works well with continuous releases approach, when release to production can be done multiple times per day. It certainly creates difficulties for secure DevOps team, and there are some limitations how this concept works with continuous release and continuous delivery process. In general, it depends on your company culture and existing release governance process. It might be a formal release process established in banks, financial institutes, and highly regulated companies, where several days can go from the change request to the actual production deployment. In this case, segregation of duties is an ideal model which will allow to control production environment and reduce security risks. From the other side, and based on my personal experience with different industries, when continuous releases is a practice and company is doing multiple production releases per day, and time from coding to production is reasonably, this might be a suboptimal model and creates an overhead. That types of companies can see more benefits and gain from going to production faster and reduce time to the market, especially in e-commerce. Still possible when a secure DevOps team controls the last step of production deployment. Decisions should be made individually based on your needs. JSON Web Tokens in Azure Resource Template. Secure your backend using Auth2 protocol with JSON Web Tokens and validate tokens against well-known endpoints of your identity provider. Extract claims in Azure API management policy. Expired registered claims is included in tokens unless required expiration time attribute is specified and set to false. This is one of the examples how you can specify your discovery endpoints which you can call and verify your token against. At an OpenID connect discovery endpoint to be specified via OpenConfig element. API management expect to browse this endpoint when evaluating the policy, including JSON web key URLs in the response to discover the public key modulus and exponents pair, which will be used for validating incoming RS-256. If you implemented custom auth solution, it is recommended to implement OpenID Connect Discovery Endpoint 2 and validate against it. There is a capability to protect APIs using client certificates in API management. Option to manage certificates are reference a certificate managed in Azure Key Vault, add certificate file directly in API management. Using Key Vault certificate is recommended way because it helps to improve API management security. However, examples here illustrate certificate uploaded to API directly with a thumbprint kept in Azure Key Vault. Validation of this certificate done in C# code by implementing custom validator. And that's how a certificate can look in API management with expiry date and a thumbprint. And in ARM templates, you can specify your key vault where you're taking value from. Azure Key Vault is a good tool to keep your secrets safe. As been mentioned, different types of Azure functions require different security measures. You can keep your subscription keys and API keys in Key Vault. You can also put your connection string there and other details such as passwords, client secrets. Connection strings between Azure function and data source, for example, SQL database, can be kept a secret, and it is a good practice to separate key vaults from different environments. As a general line and reminder, never leave valuable information in the source code configuration files, README files. Pipeline as a code and why everything should be source controlled and no manual changes should be made via Azure portal. Let's start from a distance. For every project where we apply secure DevOps, we do upfront assessment, which includes initial risk assessment, audit, compliance, what controls needs to be enforced and boundaries. Threat modeling, where we assess risk in iterations, attack surface, identity management, assess software supply chain, delivery pipeline, includes repositories, NuGet servers, plugins, artifacts, and connections. Keep delivery pipeline configuration, which builds, tests, deploy applications where software infrastructure treated as a code under the source control and represented as reusable components. Two aspects here, security of the pipeline and security in the pipeline. Security of the pipeline includes permissions, version controls, transparency, consistency of deployment, and one location for all. Security in the pipeline includes your vulnerability scan, peer reviews, access to related resources, approval for every development steps by relevant authorities. Related to SecDevOps, when you can incorporate security as a code methodology here as well. For example, reference an ID of key vault secrets in your resource templates. Second example is security scans implemented in a pipeline. Please note, these practices are not only relevant for microservices and backend, but also can be adopted to the micro frontend as well. Azure Web Application Firewalls on Azure Applications Gateway provides centralized protection for web applications from common exploits and vulnerabilities. Web applications are increasingly targeted by malicious attacks that exploit common known vulnerabilities. SQL injections and cross-site scripting are amongst the most common attacks. Configure your API management service in a virtual network in internal mode, making it accessible only within the virtual network. Azure Application Gateway is platform as a service acting as a load balancer. It provides a monolith offering a web application firewall. By combining API management provisioned in an internal virtual network with Application Gateway frontend, you can use the same API management resource for consumption for both internal and external consumers. Use a single API management resource and have a subset of APIs defined in API management available for external consumers. Provide a way to switch access to API management from the public internet on and off. Azure Monitor is a consolidated report on all the Azure entities and on-prem ecosystem is required. In other words, it's a centralized solution to monitor Azure applications, manage and secure hybrid cloud resources. Best practices enable monitoring for all applications, integrate monitoring into pipeline, group service and resources into resource group, retain logs for audit and compliance purpose. Advantages. It allows advantages analytic engine and a rich interactive query language. Automatic notification response to critical issue, create rules and detect conditions across the data collected, and optimum costs. Information on security events helps to understand and prioritize threats based on what is happening in production. This is an example of someone tried to probe API endpoints and see if they can get admin-like access. Watching for runtime errors and exceptions and attack signatures show where applications are being probed and tested, what kind of attacks shown and what part of the code need to be protected. Other tools can be considered too, for example, Serverless 360, Application Insight, Service Bus Explorer, Log Analytics. Anytime when it comes to web application development, scheduled functions, data transformation jobs, we need to think holistically how to combine static, dynamic, and interactive analysis security testing tool to improve OWASP top 10 security vulnerability detections. Do the basics like fixing known vulnerabilities and hardening your systems to decrease the likelihood of getting attacked, as well as implementing runtime protection to detect and respond to post-vulnerability exploitation and other in-memory attacks if they occur. Add a static application security testing to development lifecycle, to every commit, to catch defects early. Find known and very obvious pattern of vulnerabilities in the source code. Should be very careful how to set up policies as these tools are known for many false positive alerts and making noise for minor software flaws and unexploitable defects. However, it teaches developers how to use secure software patterns to avoid insecure, infrequently patched code libraries and explain how to repair potential vulnerabilities. Dynamic application security testing is more suitable to a waterfall approach, but Agile can benefit too. Dynamic testing detects vulnerabilities by conducting attacks against a running instance of the application, simulating the behavior of an attacker. And this tool does black box testing. Interactive analysis security testing uses agents and additional software libraries to collect data from running application, and it can reveal some potential vulnerabilities. It works inside the application and different from static and dynamic scans. It does not test the entire application or code base, but only whatever is exercised by the functional test. It runs as an agent and allowed to collect and then analyze event data. Benefits from these approaches. It reports finding in real time for the scope of the application being tested. It's good for API testing and especially for Azure Functions and microservices. Promotes reuse of existing test cases. Avoid the need to recreate scripts for security testing. In most cases, you should run both static and dynamic application testing, or you can consider a hybrid approach. It merges and correlates the result from static and dynamic tools to focus your effort on the vulnerabilities that matter most. Prioritize other findings and deliver an efficient approach to application security testing. Penetration testing could be included in early stages and can be conducted by external vendor. Secure DevOps based on shared responsibilities model. At the end of the day, this is team responsibility. Security comes first and integrated in every stage of software development lifecycle. We should remember that failure is going to happen. So here we can address our risk appetite and level of tolerance. Open, blameless communication, not only inside security team, but across development team. Getting right people start working on incident immediately is the basis of your incident response. It consists from 6 stages or steps. Preparation, most crucial step. Ensure your staff and stakeholders trained regarding their incident response roles and responsibilities in case of data breach. Develop incident drill scenarios and execute mock data breaches on regular basis. All should be planned and funded in advance. Identification. This is where you determine whether you've been breached. Could originate from many different areas. When, how was discovered, who discovered it, are the areas impacted, what is the scope compromised, does it affect operations, point of entry? All of these questions you have to answer on this step. Containment. Do not destroy evidence, contain the breach so it doesn't spread. Disconnect affected devices, application servers. Prepare short-term and long-term containment strategies. Eradication. Find and fix root cause of the breach. Has the system been hardened, patched and updated, or your code fixed? Recovery. Here you restore or redeploy affected systems and application. Lesson learned. Think about rapid learning when incidents happen. Every occurrence helps you to tighten your security posture by introducing new tools and security practices. Post-incident review meeting will help you to evaluate cost of the incident and reputational damage. What weaknesses this breach exploit? How to ensure this not happened again? What changes required in your secure DevOps cycle, or should it be applied on enterprise level? All points for today's talk. Thank you, and I would like to hear feedbacks and questions.